Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron, and I'm super excited because today I get to play with something of my own again. And I always get really excited when I'm doing my own stuff. So we're doing another video here on Evergreen. And my mind just stopped working. I don't know what's going on with me this morning, but I cannot think. Evergreen 2024 show truck has to be done by the beginning of April, really. And today we're going to shorten the frame so we can put the short bed on it. So as you can see here, somebody has lengthened the frame before. See, they took a piece of C-channel and welded it in there to lengthen it. And we're gonna cut all that out because we want it shorter. So if you're new to the channel and haven't heard what we got going on with this truck yet, it's a 72 C30 Dually from the factory. It's a cabin chassis dually, which isn't that rear end's not necessarily going to work for what we're doing with it, but we're going to put a regular width dually rear end in. We're making it a short bed. We have a factory short bed to go on it, and then I have some fenders that I'm going to make dually fenders out of, so it's a full-bodied dually. So in order to get to that point, next step is to shorten up this frame. So that's what we're going to do today. Like I already mentioned, I have wheelbase measurements off of a 69 to 72 short bed truck that I actually had here and did some work on. And I also went online and searched and found the wheelbase, and it came out to exactly what the measurement I took on that other truck was, which is 115 inches. So from center of axle back to center of axle needs to be 115 inches. Now, for those of you that have been following the channel for a while, I hope you're not going, oh man, he's shortening another frame, because yeah, I'm shortening another frame. But I'm going to try to do it a little bit different to keep everybody interested. I'm going to go through everything step by step on how I mark things, how I measure things, how I get it ready to cut it, and all that stuff. So I'm going to go through everything step by step. Pops is here today helping me out. I think I'm going to have him be the cameraman because he can get up close with this camera and show you what I'm doing versus me trying to have a camera sitting back on a tripod and trying to let you guys see what I'm doing. But that's what we're going to do, and here we go. Okay, so just to make sure I get an accurate measurement of what I need, I'm going to come over here with my tape measure. I'm going to measure my hub, and I've got 4.5 inches, so that means 2 1/4. 2 1/4 is going to be my center. So I'm going to mark 2 1/4 here, and then we're going to go up here to the front. I'm going to measure across the widest part of my hub up here, which is 4.5. So we're going to go in here and we're going to put a mark right at 2 1/4. So now I know that front and rear is, I got perfect centers to measure from. So I'm going to take the tape measure. Pops is going to drag that end down there and keep filming, and he's going to put it on that mark. You can't push the tape measure in, you got to hold it straight and try to line it up. You good there?
Yep.
Okay, so you right on your mark?
Yep.
Alright, so okay. So we got 157 inches. So 157 inches. We need 115 inches. So to get 115,
42 inches.
4. So we got to take 42 inches out of the frame in order to get the right wheelbase for this. So I want to try to leave a decent amount up here because I want to keep my body mount I want to be able to have room to put a plate or a brace or something behind my body mount to do it. So we're going to try to leave some frame up here. Probably cut this right about here. And then we'll measure back. We're not going to be able to. Right here. I'm going to have to go here. Right there's where it starts curving. So we got to be for sure where it's flat.
We're going to get rid of this brace here.
Yeah, we'll have to. We're going to have to get rid of the one up here too. So then, set right on that mark. Good. So we'll do that. And then we'll mark that there. I'm gonna go get something else that's gonna mark on this metal better than this marker.
You need a paint stick?
No. This is a paint marker. But
I meant the chalk thing, the little white things.
Oh, yeah. So that's how we're gonna get our measurement. We got our mark here, we got our mark here. It's 42 inches that we need to take out. So I have to get a cutoff wheel and cut this off and cut this off so we can get good marks on here. And then I'm gonna have to mark the other side the same way. So I'm gonna just go get the cutoff wheel. I'm gonna cut these pieces of angle iron that we're mounting the bed off and get it all cleaned up. And then once I get it all cleaned up on both sides, then we'll be able to mark it right, and I'll show you guys how I do it. All right, I got those brackets torched off and out of my way, both sides, and then I came back with a flapper disc and ground them down. Next thing I'm gonna have to do is I'm just gonna take all my wiring that goes to the back and cut it up here. And then on this side we got our brake line, but they've already got a union right here from where they extended the frame. So I can go ahead and undo this union, and then I can just take this brake line and I'll just fold it over here out of the way for now. And then once I get that stuff done, I'll bring you guys back, I'll set up the tripod, and I'll show you exactly how I mark this stuff, because you got to be really precise and straight when you mark it, because if you're not dead on straight when you mark these marks, when you go back and cut it, if one side's crooked and the other side's straight and you put it back together, then now your frame's screwed up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those wires out of the way. I'll get that brake line out of the way, and then I'll bring you guys in there and we'll show you how we mark this and get ready to cut it. Okay, so I got the extra brackets that were in my way cut off, and I went ahead and ground them down smooth so I could get good marks where I needed them. And then where I already marked with the paint marker, I went ahead and used my square and marked across the top of the frame. And now I got this square because the other square wouldn't work. It was too big. Now I got this square so I can get a nice straight line here on the side. Like so. Then I'll come back over here. one will work back here. Make our mark here. And then I'm going to take this tape measure and I'll put it here. Measure back here. We've got 42 inches. If you've been paying attention and remember from earlier in the video, we need 42 inches. So now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to measure back . Yeah, rivet and a hole. They look to be the same on the other side if I measure back from the rivet. Sorry guys, I got a fly flying around my head. It's really irritating the crap out of me. If I do that, hook it on the front of the rivet, it's exactly 5 inches. So should be able to go over on the other side here. Just stand back to look at these and see if they visually look straight. And they do. This one looks a little funky. And it looks like it's off a little. That's why you check stuff, guys. If I had just marked this and left it and not looked at it and saw that it looked off a little bit, we would have screwed our whole deal up here. Don't want to do that. If it was off a little, probably pushed too hard and moved it or something. Now, bring you guys over here and look. See that up close. You can see where my line used to be. You can see where the line used to be right here and where the line is now. So I don't know what I did wrong the first time I measured it or went to mark it, but I do this now and it's nice and straight. So we're good. Check it, double check it that way. Nice and straight and we're good. So I'm gonna go over and check the other side and make sure they look straight and good. Double check them one more time just to make sure we're right. And then we'll get the jack out here, start jacking this up and show you guys the process of getting it all jacked up and squared up so that everything goes back together easy. All right, I double checked all my lines. Everything's good and straight. That's the process that I use. I go through when I mark one of these to chop one of these frames down. Now, if you guys been watching the channel for a while, you've seen me do other ones. If you do a long bed to a short bed, it's always the same measurements. Doesn't matter if it's a 1/2 ton, 3/4 ton, 1 ton, doesn't matter. Long bed to 1/2 ton or long bed to short bed is 14 inches in the front, 5 or 6 inches in the back, just kind of depends where it lays. Now, like when I did Hot Shot, it was a cabin chassis with a weird length frame. I needed to make it the length of a long bed for the bed that I put on there. So we had to cut, I want to say it was like 27 3/4 inches off of it. So that was odd. This here is a cabin chassis with a weird length frame, and then it's been cut and extended so it's even more weird. So now to get it, and you know, a 1 ton dually is not generally a short bed. So we're cutting 42 inches out of this frame, which is insane. But it is what it is. So we got it all lined, marked, everything's good. If you're doing one like this, like I'm doing, where you have to cut a different amount out, it's not like you're just going from long bed to short bed, make sure you check your measurements like 3 or 4 times. Measure on both sides, not just one. Just go over it really, really good and make sure that you got all your bases covered, because once you cut this, there's no right way to go back if it's wrong. Like, I mean, you can do some hackery, like put a piece of, I don't even think that's C-channel. I think it's just plate on the side, welded to plate on the top and bottom. I couldn't tell you what it is, but it's not like plated or anything. It's just welded together. So anyways, it is what it is. So I got it marked. Everything's exactly right. I've checked it 2 or 3, 4, 5 times. Everything's exactly how I want it to be. So now it's on to the next step. Now we need to make sure that when we weld the frame back together, we get it welded back together exactly like it came apart. So I got my level sitting out here, and you can tell by standing back and looking at the truck that the front of the truck is sitting down lower than the back of the truck, which if we look at our level, you see the bubble, it's higher over here. It needs to come up so that it sits level. So I'm gonna get Pops to put the jack under the front of the truck, and he's gonna start jacking the truck up, and we're gonna watch the bubble until we get it level. So he's dragging the jack over there now. You want to jack it, Dad, or you want me to, and you can watch the bubble? Huh? Alright. Alright, now it's going up. Watch that bubble. And another little secret, when you're jacking it up, watching your level, you want to go past level, because if you got it perfectly level, you can't just slide a jack stand in there and have it be right. You got to go high enough to get the jack stand in and then bring it back down. Keep going, Dad. Keep going. Okay, so right there. All right, Dad. All right, so right there, we're a little bit past level. So now we're gonna take those, put them underneath there. Come on, you gonna get it? Dad's gonna, I got jack stand here, put it underneath, ran it up as far as I could. Pops is gonna stick one under the other side. And then, that's fine. And then we're gonna go let the jack down and see if we're level. If we're not, we're gonna have to jack the front end up even higher. And then,
ready?
Yep. And then do it, put another notch on it and do it again.
That's what I'm saying. Is it that level now?
No. Okay, so it's not level, so we're gonna have to jack it back up again. Raise the jacks up 1 click. And then set it back down and see where the level is. So this can be a time-consuming process, but you just keep doing the same thing until this comes out level. So we're gonna go ahead and keep going, jack it up and set the jacks. And sometimes you got to get a piece of 1/4 inch metal and put it in there to level it, because it don't come out right. So whatever it takes to get it so that bubble is perfectly level. And then once I get it perfectly level, we'll come back and I'll explain the next thing to you. So hang tight. Perfectly level. We got some jacks back here. They're not touching, but that'll be okay, because we're gonna make this cut first and we'll ease that down on that jack stand. We got these here that are on the jacks, and then we got jack stands up front holding that. So when we cut the back off, that back is gonna be free and able to roll around, and the front is stationary, sitting there perfect. And then when we get it all cut and cleaned up and everything, we'll be able to roll the back forward, and then we'll be able to set it on jacks where it's level, and then we'll put it back together. So we're good there. Transfer it over to this side. We're good there. All our marks are made. Everything's sitting the way it needs to. Guess what that means? That's right. We're about to hack up this perfectly good truck. Okay, so here we go. We're ready to cut. Now, you want to make sure that the back tires are full of air and they're all the same PSI, because when we go to put this back together, things can change, and you want to be able to let air out of the tires or air tires up. And honestly, now that I'm thinking of it, I should have taken the outer duals off so I only had the inners, because it would have made it a lot easier with 2 tires versus 4. But you do what you do. Too late now, we'll make it work. Second thing, I put a wheel chock in front of and behind the rear end so that it can't move anywhere unless I want it to. Third thing, I'm getting ready to cut it. Like I always do, I'm using a Sawzall because, in my opinion, it's easier to control that way. But this side of the frame is what we're keeping. This side is what's going away. So I'm going to leave 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch on this side of my line, because, you know, this blade can walk around a little bit or whatever, and I don't want to try to cut on my line and have it screw up and have this not be perfect. So I'm going to leave some, and then I'll come back with my grinder and grind it down to the line so that my line is perfectly straight. So when I roll it back together, it's got 2 perfectly straight lines to do what it's got to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get cutting. Like I said, I'm going to cut the back first. We'll be able to set this down on these jack stands. We'll probably roll it back just a little bit to get some distance here for ourselves, and then we'll go ahead and cut the front and get these sections out. So here we go. Through the other side. As you guys saw, I went to the inside of the line so we can true it up like I told you. But another thing I wanted to mention is I'm not forcing the Sawzall through the frame. I'm not like pushing down on it real hard to make it cut. I'm just keeping steady light pressure against it to keep the blade from jumping, but I'm letting it just do its own thing, because I don't want to force it through, and that's when you start getting stuff bound up and all that kind of stuff, and we don't need none of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim this other side same way I did that side. We'll get it set down on these jack stands where it's a little bit safer, and then we'll go ahead and make our cuts in the front. Get going with the grinder. Like I said, I'm gonna just take and grind these really slow and precise to get them perfect right on my lines. I gotta do all 4 pieces. Let's get it done. Alright, I got all the grinding done. I got it all cleaned up, except I didn't put somewhere to ground it. I'll take care of that in a minute. One thing I didn't mention when I was talking about grinding it is beveling the edge. I beveled the edges all the way around on all 4 pieces, so that when it comes together, you got a valley there to fill with weld. You get a better weld that way. So I got that all done. Next thing we're got to do is roll the back of the frame forward, get it up there, and what I'll probably do is I'll get it rolled forward and I'll get this corner touching the same corner in the same spot, and I'll just put a decent tack on there with my welder, because even if I tack that, then I can still move it if I need to. So if I go to line it up and it's so far off that I can't even line it up to tack it, then I'll have to start clamping it and whatnot first. But if I can get that first corner done, get it laid out, then I can start checking with levels and measuring and making sure everything's where it needs to be. So I'm gonna get the camera set up. Pops has already got the welder waiting for me. So we're gonna take the chocks out of this, roll it forward, then we'll re-chock it so it's kind of sitting where we need it, and then we'll analyze and see what I need to do first. But we're ready to bring this thing back together. All right, well, last thing you guys saw, I was welding up, I think, the passenger side, and I got like the driver's side halfway welded, got the passenger side all the way welded, and I started looking at it and it looked like the driver's side frame rail was a lot higher than the passenger side frame rail. So we got, before I finished welding, we got the tape measure out, started measuring, and what was it, Dad, like 2 inches difference at the back of the frame? Inch and 3/4 different at the back of the frame from the driver. The driver's side was 1 3/4 inches higher than the passenger side. So and it was sitting on the leaf springs. You can tell the leaf springs and the rear end and everything is out now. So sitting on the leaf springs, and I got to looking, and this whole, I don't know if I mentioned this in the video or not, but this whole leaf spring pack is homemade. Like, they got these overload springs on top, and they're old car springs that they've cut the eyelets off of and just stacked on there. Well, I got to looking in the driver's side, not in the overloads, but in the regular spring, the driver's side had one more spring than the passenger side, which one more spring is gonna make it different on that side. Now, when the bed was on there, it was so tweaked up you couldn't tell anyways, but if it was heavy on the driver's side, they may have put another spring over there to compensate, to make it set level and go down the road level. Well, whatever the case may be. So we thought, which it was part of it, but we thought the reason that the frame was so far off was because of that spring on that side. So I should have filmed all this, but I just kind of got irritated and started going through it. But so I told my dad, I said, it's on jack stands up front under the cab. Let's just take the rear end out, and then that takes the suspension and the rear end and the tires and everything out of the equation. If it's the same height and it's level sitting on the jack stands up there, then it should be the same height and level back here at the back. So we pulled the rear end out. That made it closer. I think that took us to like 1 1/8 inches off.
About 3/4, I think.
Somewhere around 1 inch. Might have been a little less than 1 inch, might have been a little more than 1 inch, but it was still, the driver's side was still higher. So I got to looking, and it was tweaked. The frame was tweaked, and they had corrected it when they lengthened it, and I didn't catch it. I just cut everything the same on both sides and put it back together. Well, when I noticed it, I can't leave it wrong. I had to fix it. So I tore everything down. We cut the driver's side back loose. We straightened the frame where it was tweaked, and then we relined up the frame where it should be. Measured it 15 times, tack welded it, measured it 15 more times, welded it a little bit more, measured it 15 more times, welded it, and now, I know you can't tell on camera, but this frame is 100% perfect. All the way from in front of the rear cab mounts to the back of these lights. These lights are welded on the frame different, so you can't go by those. This one's 1/4 inch higher. But if you measure to the frame, from all the way up there to all the way up here, every 2 inches all the way down the thing is the exact same measurement all the way. So we got that all fixed up. We measured, you know, from over here to over there and over here to over there and everything to make sure it was square. It's all square. Everything is 100% perfect the way we need it. So I went ahead, I got all this welded up. There was some imperfections in the frame down there that I welded, and so that's all welded up solid. This is all welded up solid. This was like a cut mark where somebody had cut something off with a cutoff wheel and dug into it, so I welded it all back up. That'll all be ground off and cleaned up and painted so you can't even tell I cut it. And what I'm doing right now is making plates to weld on the inside of the frame just for some extra support. Now, I'm using a chunk of the old frame to do it, because all the other frames that I shortened on the channel that I plated instead of doing the double frame thing, people commented telling me, oh, you're using too thick a plate, you can't use thicker plate than what the frame is, yada 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 yada. In my opinion, get mad at me if you want to, but it's a bunch of BS. Using a thicker plate hurts nothing but just to make the haters happy, I'm using a chunk of the frame rail to plate the frame rail so that it's not too thick a plate. So that's what I'm doing now. I just kind of made a little design so it wasn't just a square stuck in there. I'm gonna cut that out. I got another chunk of frame over there so I can cut one out for the other side. I'll get both of those cut out. I'll clean up the rust on the insides of the frame real good, and then I'll get my plates in there and weld them on. So we'll get that welded on. I've got some little, they're not perfect, but I just made some marks where I need to lop the back of the frame off. So I still need to cut that. And then that's not the rear end we're using. We're getting a full width dually rear end from my buddy, which we may be getting tomorrow. So I don't think I'm gonna put that rear end back under here. I think I might wait till tomorrow and see if he comes through with it. If he does, then we can go ahead and put the other rear end in here. But I don't even wanna mess with that anymore. That thing's so dangerous. I'm glad I never drove this on the road. But we're fixing it up. We're making it right. I've got some welding and grinding to do, and I'll update you guys here in a little bit. All right, a lot of grinding and cleaning and welding today, but we're finally done welding with putting the frame back together. I'm not saying I'm totally done with welding. I might have to do something else, but for right now, we got our plates in. I got the inside of the frame welded where there isn't plate. It's all done, and I'm tired. It's another one of those weeks. My wife had some personal stuff this week that she had to take care of, and I found out last minute, so I've had two half days this week, so my plans for the week didn't go as planned. Yesterday, I was gonna cut this, shorten it, get it welded back together, and finish it up, because I've shortened frames in a day before. Couple hours, but it didn't work out that way because I only got a couple hours in yesterday, and we got it all measured out and cut down, and then I only got a couple hours in today, which we got it back together, and then found out the frame was all tweaked and straightened the frame and all that, and got it back together and got it welded, and now it's the end of the day again. So my 1-day project's turning into a 3-day project, and the other project that we were supposed to do today and tomorrow before Hops heads back for the Great White North probably aren't going to get done. So they'll still get done. It would just take a lot longer because I don't have my superhero here with me, but we'll do it. So anyways, I'm about to head home and take my little girl to the park, playground, whatever, and spend some time with her, more time with her. And then tomorrow morning we'll come back. We still have to grind this down, clean it, sand it, all that stuff. We still have to get this marked out and cut all this that we don't need off. I want to straighten this cross member because I have a feeling it's tweaking this side in. I'll explain to you when we get to that process why I think it's tweaking that side in. But we'll get that straightened out. We'll get the back lopped off. We'll get this cleaned up so good you won't even be able to tell I cut it. Maybe. And hopefully my buddy comes through with the other rear end tomorrow. If he doesn't, I'll be slapping this one back in just so I can roll it out of the way. But I'm gonna go and do my thing. I'll be back first thing in the morning. All right, it's morning time. I'm back. I'm ready to work and get this thing knocked out. So I got my angle grinder here, 36 grit flapper wheel. I'm gonna take it and start smoothing out my welds. I don't want to cut in real deep with the 36 grit. I'm just using it to bust the thick stuff off. And then once I get through it with that, then I'll hit it with the 80 grit and kind of bust it down more level. And then I'll come back with my DA and do 80 and then 180. see how it looks. But I'm gonna go ahead and get to grinding, start getting this cleaned up, and I'll keep you guys updated, show you how it looks. Got all the welds ground smooth with 36 grit. I was gonna go 36 and then 80 with the flapper wheels, but the 36 was doing a pretty good job, so I just stayed on the 36. Got it all ground down all the way, the 3 outsides of the frame. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put 80, just start with 80 grit on the DA instead of going with 80 grit on the flapper and then 80 grit on the DA. So it's turning out pretty good. I'm gonna get the DA out, start sanding that down and smoothing it out. I mean, I'm trying to make it look nice like it's never been cut, but at the end of the day, what is 72 would be 82 would be 10, 92 would be 20, 02 would be 30, 40, 50, it's like a 52-year-old truck, 51-year-old truck. The frame's not perfect. It's got some little bit of surface rust and some imperfections and stuff in it, so I don't want it to look too good in that spot because then it'll really stand out. So there's still a bunch more stuff I need to clean up on the frame, but I'm gonna go ahead and sand that down and keep on moving on. Okay, got that all ground, sanded, painted. I can tell it's been cut slightly, but I also know it's been cut. So it looks good though. I mean, it's not, aside from putting a little bit of body filler in it, it's as close as it's gonna get to perfect without being perfect. So that's all done. Obviously the clean fresh paint is going to be a dead giveaway that something got done there, but there's a really good chance before this whole deal's over I'm probably going to paint the whole back half of the frame, at least, if not all of it, or you never know. My projects usually tend to spiral out of control, so right now I'm saying I just want to shorten it and all that stuff, but at the end of the day I'll probably, who knows, maybe some company that builds aftermarket suspension will call me up and say, hey, why don't you put our suspension on your truck and we'll give it to you. And I'll be like, hey, that's a great idea, why don't you send me some and I'll make it happen. So if any of y'all work for a suspension company, you kind of get what I'm saying. Yeah. All right, so Pops is getting rid of all this wiring that we're not gonna need anymore. We're getting ready to mark back here and cut it, and then I'm gonna take the overload stops off the frame because we're not gonna need those anymore, and I'm gonna take the bump stops off because the truck is gonna get lowered. I don't know if it's gonna get lowered to the extreme of flipping the rear end and C-notching it, or if I'm just gonna do a mild level it out and make it look good. But either way, the bump stops are gonna have to come off. So I'll go ahead and we'll get to that in a minute. For right now, we're gonna get the rear end marked. I've already got it measured. I believe I talked to you guys about that. If I didn't, we measured the bed that's going on there to see where it needed to be. And where I'm marking it and cutting it should be close. If we need to put a little bit of frame back on there for a bumper, we're not gonna have to because it's most likely gonna get a roll pin. So it should be fine where we're cutting it. So we're gonna go do that now. Couple different directions to make sure our measurements were gonna come out right on both sides. I made some new little marks there. So marking those. Now we're just gonna go ahead and mark this. Go over to the other side, do the same thing. Okay, got my sawzall out again. I'm going to trim these off. Got the back of the frame cut off. I need to clean it up a little bit just where it's rough. I went ahead and cut it right on the line instead of, you know, leaving some to grind off like I did up front, because I did a pretty good job for one, and two, this doesn't need to be as precise as up there. So I'm getting ready to take these overload stops off, and what I do is I'm going to take a cutoff wheel and I'm going to cut a cross or an X or whatever you want to call it in these rivet heads, and then I'll come back with my air chisel with a pointy bit on it and drive them out, and then they should pop right off. Went ahead and did the same process that I filmed here on all four and got our overload stops off. I went ahead and pulled our bump stops off. They were just bolted on. Two 5/16 bolts, went through them through the frame, nuts on them, got them off. So pretty much everything on the frame that's coming off is off, and it's shortened, it's straight, it's true, it's square, it's everything except for this cross member. And it's classic. Somebody wrapped something around here and either tried to tow something with this, or this thing was buried in a hole somewhere and they tried to drag it out. One way or the other. Either way, it ain't right. I don't like it. Got the torch out here. Got me a big crescent wrench and some hammers and whatever else it's gonna take. We're gonna straighten that back out. If it seems kind of flimsy and not like it's wanting to do cross member things when we're done, I've got a welder too, we can fix that. But we're gonna heat it up, we're gonna bend it back, and we're gonna do whatever we gotta do. We'll see how it goes. Not gonna say we got that cross member perfect, and I'm also not gonna say I'm done with it. I might cut it out, put a new piece in, or try to work it some more, or I might just say it's under the bed, you can't see it, and leave it. So I don't know, but here it is. It's a heck of a lot straighter this way than it was. And I've got the right measurement frame rail to frame rail now, where it was pinched together just a little bit before. So at least I've got our right measurement, our bed will mount okay, all that kind of stuff. So I was gonna set the bed on just because I wanted to set the bed on, but my dad had a good point. It's sitting on jack stands. There's no weight in the front of the truck. Put the weight of the bed on, there's a good chance it'll teeter-totter and flip back and whatnot, and there's really no reason why I have to put the bed on right this second. And I don't want to put the rear end back in it because I'm still waiting for my buddy to get a hold of me to go get that other rear end or bring it over to me, whichever the case may be. So I need this truck out of my way. I want to move it, but I don't want to do work twice. So I don't want to roll this rear end back and bolt it in to be able to move the truck, and then have to, you know, when I don't have Pops here to help me, take it out to put another one in. So that being said, I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. This frame's cleaning up, looking sharp. Maybe next time you see it, I'll have sanded it all down and painted it. Kind of depends. If some paint shows up or I get some money to go buy some paint, I might clean it up and paint it. Otherwise, I might just leave it like it is. I don't know. You'll find out about the same time I do. So that's gonna do it. Everybody say bye to Pops. He's headed back to his second home for a couple weeks, and then he'll come back and play again. But I have some information on the t-shirts that I mentioned in the last video, but I don't have it here with me. It's at the house. So when I finish off this video, I will put information about the t-shirts on there, because I've had quite a few people tell me in the comments that they were interested in them. So I'm gonna make some things happen and make it to where you guys can get those shirts if you want to. So that's about all I got. Old Evergreen is coming along, and she's a lot further along than she was a week ago. So, yeah, a lot further along than she was 2 days ago, yesterday, a week ago. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Stay tuned for the info on the t-shirts. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.